Hello everybody, and this is my 100-gallon Bloody Mary breeding shrimp pond that I also grow aquatic plants in to sell on my website, markshellyaquatics.com. And let's just take a quick look at this. Man, oh man, look at all these shrimp. This is something else. So I started this pond about 4.5 months ago. I started it to be able to mass produce my Bloody Mary shrimp line because it is so good. I breed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in a 40-gallon tank and a 20-gallon tank, and really there's not that much calling to be done. So I figured if I wanted to mass produce a line, I wanted to do it with a line that was really good, because you know it's not the easiest thing to call these shrimp out. Now I will be doing a bunch of calling in this video, and this will be the first big calling I've done in this video. But you know, as I sit and watch it, I keep my net and I pick out bad ones when I see them. But overall, I mean, these shrimp are pretty unbelievable. I mean, this pond is has performed way better than I ever could have expected as far as the shrimp breeding and even the plant growth. These are Sunset Florida crypts that you're seeing in here with all the shrimps on the edges. Those are the plants besides the moss. So this is a Florida Sunset crypt farm and a Pilo moss farm. And I mean, the plant growth, especially the crypts, it completely blows my mind. But I wanted to start tearing out some of this moss because, as you can see, it's starting to overtake the crypts. Even though the crypts are doing super unbelievably awesome for crypts, they're still slower growing than this moss. If you go back to one of the first videos where I set this up, you'll see I did put a pretty big chunk of moss in, but not anything like this. This thing has gotten ridiculous. I believe I uploaded the video where I started this on March 6th, and now this is July 21st, so that makes it exactly 4.5 months. And I'm going to put links to all the videos I made about this, from the filter setup, the DIY filter setup, to planting it and setting it up. And I have videos about substrate and how I got the crypts to grow so good. First thing I'm doing here is pulling out some of this moss. Now this will be the first time I've pulled any moss out, and then, I mean, other than changing the water and feeding, and I've pulled out a handful of shrimp here and there, just a few whenever I see them. This is the first time I've really gotten into this stock tank pond in 4.5 months. And just look at all that moss. Man, oh man, oh man. And I'm pretty excited because this will be the first time I've harvested any moss out of here to sell on the website. So now the guppy pond I've spent hundreds of dollars on getting going, not the guppy pond, the shrimp pond I spent hundreds of dollars to get going, is now going to start paying off with the moss. I haven't started selling shrimp out of here. I have one of my rules is I don't sell shrimp out of a new tank until it's at least 6 months old. So I'm going to let this thing keep going for another couple months probably before I even think about selling out of it. I still have a whole bunch of Bloody Marys in my 40-gallon tank. So look at this great big huge mat of moss I'm pulling out of here. Look at this. I got to be real careful not to hurt the shrimp. Look at that. This might be the healthiest moss I've ever seen. This moss is unbelievable. Now the light underneath here is a 150-watt spotlight type of deal, and it's LED. It's LE Power is the brand name. I get them on Amazon. I don't even remember how much it costs, but I think I got 2 of them for like $130 or something. So they're really not that expensive for 150-watt LED. And the older style ones used to burn out a lot, but the newer style ones seem to be pretty good. So just look at that healthy green lush moss. And you don't want it to get too tall, because as the moss grows higher and higher, the moss underneath will turn brown. You can see how some of that moss is kind of getting brown, but then this is why I want to come through and pull a bunch of it out so it still looks pretty good. But look at that, we got a little Bloody Mary shrimp on my finger. Put that one in there, back in the water. And look at me, I got wet. That's a pretty deep stock tank to be reaching the bottom to. And look at all this moss. This is a huge, these are huge piles of moss, all perfectly healthy, no algae, nothing going on. And all this will be available at my website, markshellyaquatics.com. Again, the moss and the shrimp are available there if you guys are interested. Check it out. And look at this. Okay, so now we've got the moss pulled out that we wanted to pull out. And it's a little stirred up, it's a little cloudy, but not too bad. And let's just take a good look, because I haven't seen the substrate because the moss is completely grown up to the all the way to the front, so I haven't seen the bare substrate. Pretty much, if it wasn't crypts or moss, it was cut, or if it wasn't crypts, it was covered in moss, and even the crypts are getting covered in moss. But there's just hundreds and hundreds, there's thousands of them in here. All these little shrimp. So now let's get started on calling. This is the time lapse. I get all the algae wafers in one little spot. And with a body of water this big, normally this works really good in like 20 gallon and 40 gallon tanks and even 75 gallon tanks. But in something like this, you still get a huge pile of shrimp on the algae wafers. But as you'll see here in a little bit, there's so many shrimp in here. The shrimp just are covered in the walls of the stock tank. So I'm going through here while the time lapse is going and pulling out the bad ones. And then you go through, you pick out some bad ones that you see, then they all kind of scatter a little bit. Then you come back 10 minutes later, pick out, see if they readjusted and if any more bad ones come out. And this is a way to get, when you got a big tank like this and you got thousands of shrimp, this is a good way to get them all gathered up so you can see what you're dealing with. And like I said though, in something this big with this many shrimp, you get lots and lots in the pile. But yeah, so now we've got a whole bunch culled out during the time lapse, and look at that pile of shrimp down there. That is something. So let's see if I can get catching some of these guys on video. Look at that. I mean, there's a huge pile down there at the bottom, and they're still just everywhere on the walls. With this light, it grows so much biofilm and algae on the walls of this. The shrimp just love it. I mean, and look how good these shrimp are. I mean, they're so good. And like I said, I've had people ask me on videos about this before, is how do you call with this? Well, this is how I call, but the main thing you want to do, you don't want to do something like this with a crappy line. You want to have a line that is rock solid. I've had these guys for years, and I know there really isn't that much calling to do. So that's why I wanted to do a stock tank pond, shrimp pond with this line. I mean, let's look at them. Oh my goodness, that's something. And then the walls are still covered in them. Let's see if we can get some out right here on video. This is pretty hard to do. Trying not to drop my camera in. And this is a low quality. A lot of them are just low quality ones, and there's some oddballs in there. There's some ones, a few of them that are like bluish and like red Bloody Mary really looking ones, and there's some that were just white. There's a couple in there I pulled that were almost colorless, which I thought was pretty weird. But when you get this many shrimp mass reproducing, you get some different kind of culls than I get in my 40 gallon, which I thought was kind of weird. But I guess when you get this many breeding out, you're going to get some different things that you're used to seeing. At least that's what I've experienced when you're breeding this many shrimp in one go. But overall, the quality is really superb considering how many shrimp there are in here. So now we're just scanning. Look at all the look at those crypts, man. Those crypts are doing so good. I've never had crypts grow this good before, so they're really happy underneath this light. And the secret to because that's not plant substrate, that's just blasting sand. with Job's plant spikes underneath the crypts. And the crypts soak all those nutrients up from them plant spikes with their roots, and they just grow like crazy. The only thing you need to be careful of with that is you gotta make sure you get those plant spikes all the way buried, and you don't want to be pulling up plants and pulling up the plant spikes, because then that stuff will get in the water. So we gotta leave it. We're gonna leave it. I'm not even gonna touch the crypts for probably close to a year, and then we'll think about selling some crypts. But we're gonna let those get huge, reproduce, and then I'll be able to offer those for sale as well. So really, I mean, like I said at the very beginning of this video, this 100-gallon Rubbermaid stock tank shrimp pond and plant farm has gone even better than I had even ever hoped. I mean, and now that it's time for it to start paying off and start harvesting some plants and shrimp out of here, I am super pumped and excited. You can see there's still more gathering up. There's still more gathering up, and there ain't even any less on the side. So all these gathering up down here are probably mostly the ones that were in the moss, because all the other ones that are covered on the sides, those are still out and about. So I looked down there, and when I was doing the time lapse, I was looking down there in the pile of shrimp, and then now we're looking at the sides and going back and checking the pile, seeing if there's any bad ones in there. Just looking at, oh my gosh, it still blows my mind. I mean, this thing is completely unbelievably awesome. I mean, even on the back, all the way around, 360 degrees, all the way around this whole stock tank. The walls are just covered in beautiful Bloody Mary shrimp. I really honestly couldn't ask for more. Man, this, I don't know how, I mean, I've got a pretty good recipe for success, and I do it in tanks, and I tried to do what I do in my tanks in this great big stock tank to a certain degree, and I mean, it's just, I've always discovered that bigger bodies of water the shrimp do better in. Bigger bodies of water have more stable parameters, and so the bigger tanks usually do better. And if you're dedicating a whole 100-gallon stock tank just to breed shrimp and grow plants in, because all my other tanks, they have a bunch of other stuff going on in them too, with a bunch of plecos and all that. Now without plecos, the snails do, I got to do regular snail removal in here, but that's not too bad, because I feed so much, make so many shrimp that inevitably the snails reproduce like crazy as well. But man, looking, trying to find some more bad ones. I mean, I really didn't pull that many shrimp out of here, and I searched, and this is the biggest cull I've done on this. Like I said before, I'm just kind of I've pulled out some here and there. Like every time I stop and look at it, I'll grab the net. If I see a couple bad ones, they're easy to get at, I'll pull them out. But this is the first major cull. Now these are the ones we pulled out. See some weird oddball ones, mostly just really low quality looking males for the most part. I think there's one lower quality looking female in here, and there's almost like a wild looking one that was buried right there. And some of them I pulled out because they almost look black, but those are actually like chocolates, because chocolates come from Bloody Marys. I probably ought to try to start a chocolate colony, pulling the chocolates out of here. But here we go, releasing the culls in the Skittles tank. Considering how many shrimp that were in there, that really, I mean, I looked. I edited this thing down. I had hours of footage I spent sitting around looking at this pond, trying to pick out the bad ones, and why'd you look at it? Here it is. We pulled out a ton of moss, called out some shrimp, and look at them. Look at that big pile of shrimp. Look at those crypts. Look at that moss. This thing is unbelievable. So, hope you guys enjoyed watching my progress on my 100-gallon Bloody Mary shrimp pond. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.